According to SNY's Andy Martino, the New York Mets are reportedly done adding expensive free agents this offseason, particularly position players. What does that mean for Jeff McNeil, Dominic Smith, JD Davis, and so much more? I'll discuss all the layers of this report on today's episode of Locked On Mets.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. For those of you who don't know, I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on Twitter at FinkelsteinRyan. You can also find some of my writing about the Mets at justbaseball.com. My latest article was a write-up from the podcast a few days ago where I was talking about Steve Cohen's all-in approach and how it differs from other teams around baseball. Get into a little more detail in that article, so I encourage all of you to check that out. Now, we have to discuss today this report by Andy Martino, but for any of you who have been following this show throughout the offseason, you know that this report was music to my ears, and it's going to sound crazy, right? Why would a Mets fan not want to see another significant free agent signing? Because this means that Kris Bryant will not be a New York Met. And I know, again, there's Mets fans who maybe haven't been listening to this show that are thinking, okay, who is this guy? Why would he not want Kris Bryant on the New York Mets? I have laid out the case time and again. This is a free agent who is terrible defensively, despite the narrative that he brings great value on that side. He is clearly at a point in his career where he is, if nothing else, plateaued, if not on a downturn, and he's going to expect a significant long-term contract. And I felt like the Mets could do better in the future, not necessarily this offseason, but I didn't want him to limit their spending possibilities in future off seasons. And I felt like Jeff McNeil was better. So this report really was great for me in that sense. And let me just lay out all the things we learned from Andy Martino of SNY as he gave us a lot of great nuggets today. You have the fact that, as he says, I'm just going to read the start of this report. He says, in the days after the Mets agreed to terms with free agents Starling Marte, Mark Canha, Eduardo Escobar, the team pivoted immediately to pitching. When the lockout ends, that's where they will still be. Before December 1st, team sources said that the Mets were likely done adding significant, expensive free agents, particularly on the position player side. That remains true. Epler could also look to add complementary lineup pieces, but the team hasn't been seriously considering headline-grabbing names like Kris Bryant or Carlos Correa since November. One other interesting part of the report that Martino says here is that the Mets have not completely ruled out their pursuit of Seiya Suzuki, the Japanese outfielder, but he even cautions that it doesn't make a lot of sense with the way their roster is currently constructed. You already have Nimmo, Canha, and Marte in the outfield. Suzuki would be a fourth outfielder. He's better than that. He's going to be a starting player. I guess if you wanted to have Canha be a DH, first baseman, outfielder, and you mix those guys up, maybe it could work if you are not buying into this notion that Robinson Cano is going to be the DH. But again, Martino outlines that that's sort of unlikely. We've seen a lot of linking between Suzuki and the Giants anyway, so I wouldn't pay that too much thought. The big report here is that Kris Bryant's off the table. I don't think anyone thought Carlos Correa was going to go to the Mets, but there was a lot of buzz around Kris Bryant right before the lockout happened. There was all these rumors that maybe the Mets would jump in on it. Steve Cohen likes the big name player. There was other reports back during the trade deadline that the Mets were trying to get both Bryant and Baez, so there was some interest. This is a good thing for the Mets that they are out on Kris Bryant. As I already said, it's not that Kris Bryant is a bad player. That's not what I'm saying. And it's not even that Jeff McNeil is a better player in 2022 than Kris Bryant. But when I look at these two players, and if the thought was that you were going to sign a Kris Bryant because you didn't want Jeff McNeil in the starting lineup, I don't think that there is enough of a difference there to warrant a $25 million a year signing for 5 or 6 years. That's been my argument the whole time. And you look at what they've done since 2018 when McNeil debuted. He's hit 299, 364 on base, 459 slugging percentage. Kris Bryant has hit 268, 363 on base, 479 slugging. So Bryant gives you a little bit more pop. They've been about the same when it comes to their on base percentage. Batting average, McNeil hits for a higher average, but that doesn't really matter too much. From there, though, you look at the F WAR. You have Kris Bryant at 11.1, Jeff McNeil at 9.1. So Bryant a little bit better, but he did have an extra 59 games compared to McNeil. So that gave him a little bit more time to rack up more when it comes to the wins above replacement. But still, Bryant's a better player. I'm not saying that. But again, it's the difference in cost. And then you look at weighted runs created plus. This is a stat that measures hitters based on a league average of 100. Jeff McNeil since 2018, and this is with his down 2020 season, has a 126 WRC plus for his career. Kris Bryant since 2018 has a 124 WRC plus. So they are about the same offensively. Defensively, you look at outs above average, defensive run save. McNeil is head and shoulders a better defender. This past season, he was in the 89th percentile around baseball when it comes to outs above average. Kris Bryant was among the worst defenders in baseball based on that metric, minus 10 outs above average. And then you have McNeil at plus 5 outs above average. So McNeil gives you that quality defensive versatility. And I think he just fits this roster better. They need to have that guy that can be moved all over the place. That's why I am not for trading Jeff McNeil, because I believe he's the perfect starting second baseman. And if you need him in left field for a stretch, Robinson Cano can play some second. Louis Guillorme can play some second. You can mix and match. Eduardo Escobar can play some second base. Let's just say Mark Vientos ends up, making the team out of camp or makes the team a month into the season. He's playing third. Escobar can slide over to second. McNeil can play all over the place. There's a lot of different things this team can do with Jeff McNeil. And you could have made the argument they could do that with Kris Bryant as well. But Bryant doesn't play second. Bryant's bad defensively at third, and he's bad in the outfield. So even though he would make the Mets better in 2022, don't get me wrong, he'd be another home run threat. I love the fact that they are out on this because it just opens up other possibilities. When Jose Ramirez is a free agent, maybe you'll have the space then to go after a guy like that. You don't have a Kris Bryant blocking things up at third base and DH. There's just a lot of different things. And when it comes to this team, when it comes to Kris Bryant, the more I thought about it, the less I liked it. So when I heard this report today, I was excited. And it sounds weird to say you're excited to find out that a team is out on an all-star player, a former MVP. But I was, because I think the Mets are making the right move, not only for this season, but beyond. I think if you look at the additions they made with Canna, Escobar, and Marte, that is significant for any offseason. To add 3 starting level players, I think because it happened in succession, people, wanted more. They wanted another move, but I don't think you necessarily need one. Now, the question is, how can they rework this team to fit a little bit better? Could that be a trade of Dominic Smith, JD Davis, apparently McNeil? That's what I'm going to talk about in a minute, because that's another part of this report. The Mets are still open to dealing those guys, but what would be the ramifications of moving them? How could they complete this roster with other smaller moves if they are in fact out on those premium free agents that they could bring in? So we'll go through all of that in just a minute. But first, I want to tell you about Built Bar, because it is a new year, and that means New Year's resolutions. And if yours is about getting fit or eating healthier, this is the time to make Built Bar part of your plan, because this is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, making it so much easier to stick to your resolution because they taste so good, you'll want to eat them. Unlike other protein bars, which can be chalky or waxy, Built Bars are soft, they're easy to chew, they come covered in 100% chocolate, so you know they're going to be delicious no matter what flavor you choose, and they have so many flavors you could pick from, whether that's a coconut almond bar, peanut butter brownie, raspberry, cookies and cream, which is my personal favorite, salted caramel, mint brownie, and many more. In fact, if you go to built.com, there's always some new flavors. They're cooking it up, limited time flavors that you can try. And if you want to get a mixed box, you can try the limited flavors, you can try the classic flavors, whatever you like. And when you get there at built.com, you want to make sure you use the promo code LOCK15. They're going to give you 15% off your next order. Again, that's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. So the Mets are willing to listen to trade offers, according to Andy Martino, on JD Davis, Jeff McNeil, and Dominic Smith. Now, we've heard that all offseason. So this is not a revelation of a report, but it's just reiterating past reporting. How do the Mets formulate a team with those guys or without those guys? Let's just say no one gets moved. The position player core is set. You're going into opening day with what you got. I've talked about it before. The bench to me doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, if the starting lineup is as we would assume with Jeff McNeil at second base, you got obviously Lindor, Escobar, and Alonso rounding out your infield, McCann behind the plate, the outfield of Canna, Marte, and Nimmo. You go to the bench, you got Tomas Nido, your backup catcher, Louis Guillorme, your backup shortstop, because no one else can play that position. You got Dom, you got JD, and you got Cano. That's 3/5 of your bench that I don't want playing defense, and 2/5 of your bench that I don't want hitting. Now, when I said that, I immediately felt a tinge in my heart because I'm a big Nito guy. I'm a big Guillorme guy. I really think that these are some key players that could do more in bigger roles. I love them defensively. Guillorme has just been given great at bats since the second half of 2019. He gets on base at a really high clip. I really like him. At the same time, today's game is about hitting home runs, and he doesn't bring that. That doesn't mean that he can't function, but it means the rest of the lineup around him has to be functioning because if Guillorme gets on first base, that's great. Someone's got to hit a home run to drive him in. So that's where I am with Guillorme. I do think that your team could be a little bit better if you had a backup shortstop with a little bit more offensive upside, but I would be cool with it if the rest of the bench had a little bit more to it. It had another starting level player out there that I really like because you look at the bench right now and Cano, we don't know what he's going to be. I mean, he could go into spring training, hit 160, continue that through the first 2 weeks of the season and be cut, and Cohen could just be eating a poison pill of a contract. Or he could be great, and he could be an awesome DH. I still think there's a chance that we get that version of Cano, although I haven't loved seeing some of the numbers he's had in where's he playing? The Mexican League? Don't quote me on that. I think it's the Mexican League or a Dominican League. Regardless, he's playing winter ball, and he only has one home run. The last I checked, not hitting for a lot of pop. That is concerning when he's now getting closer and closer to 40. Dom and JD are just two players that we've talked about for the past 3 years where they have fits, they don't have fits. They do good things, they do other things that just drives you nuts. JD, the double clutching, defensively, Dominic Smith having stretches where he looks great offensively and then stretches like this past season where he just couldn't hit at all. I think part of the struggles last year is because he was really the only person that stayed healthy the whole year. And I think there was some pressure on him to produce at all times. And he just maybe felt that too much. And hitting can be contagious both ways. If everyone's hitting, it just makes it easier. If everyone's not hitting, it can make it that much harder to break through slump. So I still like Dom. If you've been listening or watching to this show for some time, I'm not a fan of JD. I love to see him move because of Mark Vientos' presence on the 40. I feel like Vientos is going to make an impact on the Mets this year. And if JD Davis is on the roster, it doesn't really make sense. So I would clear JD to open that door for Vientos. I would look at some free agents you could sign on the fringes right now. You look at some minor league free agent signings you could make. Is Josh Harrison going to get a major league deal? He did have a really good second half with the Nationals, but he was really bad with the Athletics in the first half. There's a chance that he would sign with another contender on a minor league deal where he can earn a job out of camp. He gives you that flexibility, right? Billy Epler loves the guys that can play on the dirt and on the grass. He can do that. He can play the outfield, can play all over the infield. So I like Josh Harrison to bring a spark to the bench. Marwin Gonzalez is a guy that I don't necessarily love, but on a minor league deal, I would love him just because he also brings that versatility. He hasn't really hit other than when he knew it was coming for the 2017 Astros, but still, again, we're talking about minor league signings. Charlie Culberson fits that bill as well, someone that can play all over the place. If you get those guys or a Brandon Drury back, you can go into camp, have them compete. One of them can make the bench. Vientos, if he doesn't win a job, can be waiting in the wings. I'm okay with that looking at this team if they were to trade a JD Davis, and that's all they did. If they went into camp and they also gave that opportunity to a Khalil Lee or a Nick Plummer, two outfielders that'll either be in AAA or on the major league roster that are on the 40, there's options. There is. And I don't think you need to have the World Series team ready on opening day. You can go into the season and see what JD looks like, see what Dom looks like, see what McNeil looks like. And if it's not going well, then you know what? Let's just say you call up the Twins. Josh Donaldson's playing well, but the Twins aren't as a team. You're going to take on all of his salary. Maybe that's an easy trade you can make. If the Athletics are having a bad year, but Chapman has bounced back, maybe then you push your chips to the middle of the table for a Matt Chapman during the season when you know that you are that one piece away. I think it's good to wait and maybe not jump at that piece now when you don't know about so many other things on your roster. The one other thing I will say is if the Mets were to trade JD and Dom, then you could possibly go into free agency and get a mid-tier free agent. Jonathan VR, my guy, he's still out there. He was good for the Mets this past year. I don't know if there's going to be a team out there that'll give him a starting role, but he could be once again that first bat off the bench for the Mets, a switch hitter that could play all over the infield. We saw it. He could back up Lindor at short. He could even play a little bit of outfield, although he didn't do that for the Mets this past season, but he has done that in the past. So I still like VR. You talk about some outfielders, Tommy Pham, Eddie Rosario, that are still out there, Donovan Solano as another infielder. So there is still some mid-tier free agents the Mets could target that aren't going to break the bank. They did not say, or Martino did not say in his reporting, that they wouldn't sign another position player free agent, just that they are out on those big ticket guys, the Trevor Stories, the Correas, the Bryants of the world. Now, there was one other interesting part to Martino's reporting where he discussed the pitching side of things. So I will get into that in just a minute. But first, BetOnline would like to wish you a happy new betting year as we continue our march to the playoffs and beyond. BetOnline remains the number one spot for all the best sports wagering action for 2022. New year, new updated desktop and mobile website. So sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit just by using our promo code Locked On. From football, basketball, hockey, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for 2022. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. So the last little bit of reporting here by Andy Martino is that general manager Billy Epler is not done improving the team. He and his staff are still looking for a starting pitcher with former Seattle Mariners lefty Usei Kikuchi. Maybe I got that right. Calling Kikuchi a distinct possibility. That's a tough one for me pronunciation-wise. I think they just call him Yusei or YK on the broadcast booth. They were calling him a couple different things when I was watching some highlights today, so maybe I can get by just calling him YK. Some of these names are tough for me on these other teams, but you look at what Kikuchi or YK could bring to the Mets, a left-handed starter. I didn't love him when I was looking at the numbers because he got hit really hard this past year, but when I watched him on tape, I liked him a little bit more. The fastball really jumps on you. Not only is it, averaged at 95 miles per hour, but he has this really interesting delivery where it feels like it has just kind of this shot put motion where it just kind of comes out of nowhere, like out of a cannon. You don't see that often from a left-handed pitcher. The Mets don't have a left-handed starter. The curveball looked pretty good as well. So I see how he racks up a lot of strikeouts with those two pitches. I still am a proponent of Zach Greinke over Kikuchi, but it seems like the Mets have really been linked to this guy since before the lockout. So if that ends up being the result of this offseason, they get Scherzer and Kikuchi, their rotation's a lot better. I think he could be a solid option for the Mets rotation. Again, I like Greinke more because I feel like Greinke is a more sure bet to take the ball every fifth day to be durable. And I also think that he would bring a very interesting element to a veteran team. I could see Greinke just fitting right in a rotation that has Scherzer and DeGrom. I just think about the brain power of that staff. You're in a meeting and you're about to go in and talk about how you want to pitch to whatever team. You're playing the Braves, and now you have Zach Greinke, another just baseball genius in the room, talking to DeGrom about how they should attack when he's on the mound, how Greinke would attack some hitters. that would be great for some of the young pitchers. If Taijuan Walker's on the IL and Peterson or McGill's in the rotation, you have another just veteran presence that's helping all of the guys around them in those meetings. I think that he just brings a ton of value beyond just taking the ball every fifth day as well. So I'm still more of a proponent of Zach Greinke over YK, but we'll see what the Mets do. The other part of Martino's reporting was that they will also still likely add an arm or two to their bullpen. That was going to be the show today. For those of you who listened yesterday, I said today I was going to talk about some bullpen arms. We'll do that next week. We'll go through some different names that I like for the Mets, like Ryan Tepera, Andrew Chafin, even bringing Brad Hand back or Keith Hembry back. There's still options. I'd like to see the Mets add two arms in the bullpen and get Zach Greinke. And if they did all of that, I think that their team's in pretty good shape. As we've already addressed on the show, there are other moves they can make on the fringes. I don't know that they're going to get this great haul in any of the trade possibilities that we're talking about when it comes to JD, Dom, or McNeil. I don't know if any of them really get something that brings you much value other than a bullpen arm for 2022. But I think that would be worth it just to clear up the roster a bit. If you were to trade JD Davis for a reliever, I think that would be a solid addition. If you just trade JD for prospects and clear the room and open that door for Vientos, I think that's good as well. If the Mets were to trade Dominic Smith, I think that they would be probably conceding that maybe a Plummer or a Lee could step in and be that fourth outfielder, because right now that's sort of Dom's role. Jeff McNeil and Dominic Smith are kind of the backup outfielders on this roster for Canna, Nimmo, and Marte, but we'll see how they proceed throughout this offseason. It's going to be fast paced. We still don't know when this lockout ends, and there's a good chance that when it does end, there's going to be a really quick lead up into camp. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of transactions taking place during spring training as well. But I think this reporting today just gives you an idea what the mindset is in that front office. They did a great job getting those three position players. That's three starting level players. Again, that is a lot for any offseason. So you made significant additions. You got another ace. I think the Mets are comfortable going into opening day with this team, and they should be. But as Bill Yepler said in his own words in the press conference the other day, he's always open to other avenues of getting better, and the Mets will be opportunistic when something comes up. And the best thing is they have a ton of options, a lot of things at their disposal that are going well for them that they can take advantage of. Anyway, though, that's going to be all for today's edition of Locked On Mets. That's going to be all for this week on Locked On Mets. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q and handicapping expert Lee Sterling. Locked On Bets is where you want to go as we head into championship weekend in the NFL. They're where you want to be for all your best picks when it comes to betting on football, basketball. When we get to the baseball season, Locked On Bets will have you covered as well. You can follow Locked On Bets wherever you get podcasts.